Alright guys, thanks for watching this video on gerunds. My name is Mr. Pritchard. Today we have two objectives. One, we're going to identify gerunds in gerund phrases. And then our second objective is to distinguish between gerunds and present participle. There's a lot of confusion about these two things because they both end with the same three letters, I-N-G. Alright, so a gerund is a verbal, and a verbal is a verb that is changed a little bit to be used as either an adjective, a noun, or an adverb. Adjectives are participles and participial phrases. A verb that is used as a noun, this is a gerund. Here are some examples. Swimming exercises every major muscle. Swimming, formed from the verb swim, is the subject of the verb exercises. Swimming is the subject in the sentence, and all subjects have to be nouns or pronouns. If this is the subject, and all subjects equal nouns, then swimming equals noun. And nouns that end in ing, that are formed from verbs, are gerunds. And here's another one. Before running, I like to do some stretches. Running, formed by the verb run, is the object of the preposition before. Objects of prepositions are words that come after prepositions. Before is a preposition. The only thing that can follow a preposition is an object of that preposition, and all objects of prepositions are nouns. Thus, this instance of the word running is a noun. And ing verbs, verbs with ing at the end, used as nouns, are gerunds. So running is our gerund. Let's do three more. So in sentence number one, we have swimming, another aquatic sport, demands physical endurance. When you're looking for gerunds, look for those ing words. We're looking for ing. And here it is, swimming. Now in a moment we're going to see that this is not enough. We can't yet say that swimming is a gerund because it might be a present participle. So let's try to find its role in the sentence. Swimming, another aquatic sport, demands physical endurance. This is a subject. Whoops. Because it is the activity that demands physical endurance. It is the thing that demands physical endurance. And it's right where a subject should be, right at the front of the sentence, which is the traditional place for it. So because this is the subject of this verb, this, swimming, must be a noun, and it's a verb ending in ing used as a noun, so it's a gerund. Number two, a more, and there should be a space there, a more leisurely form of exercise is walking. Here we have our ing word, and this suggests that it is a gerund. But we're not done. We have to make sure that it's not a participle. This is a gerund because it follows this linking verb. Now a linking verb is a verb like this one, the state of being verb is. And what a linking verb does is it connects the subject here, leisurely form, with something else. In this case, they're giving it another name. That makes this what's called a predicate nominative. One way that I like to use to find linking verbs, and I saw it online, I wish I could give credit to it, is I like to see if I can replace this with an equal sign. If I can replace the verb with an equal sign, then we know that the verb is a linking verb because it is linking one thing to something that it is equal to. A more leisurely form of exercise equals walking. And although that's a little awkward to say, it does work. That means this is what follows a linking verb, and the only thing that can follow that is a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective. This is a predicate nominative because they're talking about the activity called walking. They're giving that form of exercise a name. So it's a predicate noun, a predicate nominative, and thus it's a gerund, because all predicate nominatives are nouns. Okay, 3. Although it may seem leisurely, sailing also requires strength. And here's our ing word, but we're not quite done. It might be a participle. So here we have, here's the verb. It requires strength, and the thing that requires strength will be our subject, and that is sailing. So we call that a subject, and it's a noun. One trick that works in most cases, it doesn't work if the ing word is an indirect object, and it may not work in other instances I just can't think of off the top of my head, but it mostly works, is I like to see if I can delete the ing word. If the sentence completely falls apart after deleting that ing word, then it's probably a gerund. The reason for this is that nouns tend to be very important. They tend to be essential and not deletable, whereas adjectives are very deletable usually. So if you try to delete these ing words, you'll see that these sentences no longer really work. Although it may seem leisurely, also requires strength. Without this word to provide any context to this part, the predicate, it doesn't work. A more leisurely form of exercise is. Without the word walking, the sentence no longer makes sense. So a gerund phrase, anything that contains a gerund, and the phrase are any modifiers or complements that that gerund has. For the most part, these will be prepositional phrases that are associated with the gerund. The entire phrase is used as a noun. My grandfather and his friends enjoy swimming at the beach. Here we have swimming. This is the direct object of the verb enjoy. And we have the prepositional phrase associated with that gerund, at the beach. And all of this, including the prepositional phrase, is one noun. Here's another one. The growling of the chained dogs made me uneasy. Here again we have this prepositional phrase of the chained dogs, which is part of the gerund growling. Growling of the chained dogs is one phrase, and this is the subject. All of this is the subject of the verb made. So I've already hinted at this a little bit, and I've tried to help you use a technique that I like to distinguish between participial and gerund phrases. Let's take a look at this. Gerunds and present participles both end in ing. Do not confuse a gerund, which is used as a noun, with a present participle, which may be used as an adjective or as part of a verb phrase. So it's very tricky to distinguish between these two things because they both end in ing. Sometimes people will know that ing goes with gerund, and this person will confuse the two all the time. So let's try to avoid confusion. I always love skiing in Colorado. In this case, skiing in Colorado is a gerund phrase. And it's a gerund phrase because it's a direct object. Direct object is one of the noun forms. This is the activity that is love, that I always love. A little technique that I like to use to tell the difference between an ing gerund and a participle phrase is I like to see if I can delete the whole phrase. If I can't delete it, if the sentence either means something fundamentally different or it no longer makes sense, it is very, very likely that it's a gerund. There may be exceptions to this, but it's very unusual for a sentence to work without a gerund. So now we have I always love, and the sentence means something completely different or no longer makes sense. Here's another one. I hurt my ankle last year skiing in Colorado. This phrase does not satisfy one of the noun functions. It is not, for example, a subject or a direct object or indirect object, object of the preposition, predicate nominative. This is a participial phrase that modifies the pronoun I in this case. And let's try to use my special technique. Let's try to delete it from the sentence. Okay, so here, when we try to delete it, the sentence still works because this is an adjective, and a lot of adjectives tend to be deletable. I hurt my ankle last year. It works. So this is a participle. All right. So in the first sentence, eating out in Tokyo is fun. So here's our ing word. In these other, eating out in Tokyo here's our prepositional phrase describing the eating, so that's included in the phrase. All of these words together, these are the only words in front of our linking verb is. So this has to be the subject. Subjects are supposed to go in front of the verbs that they are associated with, so this has to be a subject. Now that's really important because subject is one of the noun functions. So eating out in Tokyo has to be a subject because it has to be a noun. And that means that it must be a gerund. We can try to use my technique too. Let's see if we can delete it. Is fun. Doesn't work. So my little technique works in this case. Number 2. The problem is choosing among so many different restaurants. So here is our phrase, choosing among so many different restaurants. And I know this seems like I've identified too much, or it might be very long, but it's really not so hard. Here we have among, here we have our gerund, and this is a gerund, and we'll talk about that in a minute. This is our gerund, and it has this preposition among, and then we have to include the object of that preposition as part of the phrase. So many different restaurants. This is our object of the preposition among. So this phrase is very long. Now this is a gerund because it's a predicate nominative. We saw this before. The word is a linking verb, and it gives another name to the problem. Another name for the problem is choosing among so many different restaurants. We know that is a linking verb because I can replace it with an equal sign. The problem equals choosing among so many different restaurants. So predicate nominatives are always nouns, which means this ing word is a noun, and an ing word that is formed by using a verb adding ing to it is a gerund. Okay, 3. Pointing at the puppy, Jim said he really wanted to get one. So this sentence is trying to trick you. It's actively trying to trick you. They have purposely written the sentence in a way that suggests that it's a gerund. But actually, pointing at the puppy is a participle that describes Jim. And we know this for a couple of reasons. First of all, this is not one of the noun functions. This is not a subject, direct object, indirect object, object of the preposition, predicate nominative, you name it. This instead describes Jim a little bit. If you want, you could try to use my technique. Let's try to delete it and see if the sentence works. Jim said he really wanted to get one. And although this is a little vague because we don't know what the puppy is, we no longer have the antecedent for the word one, it does still function. The sentence would still work if we knew what one is. So they're even trying to trick you into where my technique doesn't seem to work very well, but it still does. Our first objective was to identify gerunds and gerund phrases. And we talked about how gerunds end in ing, and gerund phrases are not just the word with the ing, but also prepositional phrases around it that make it a little bit longer. Also any other adjectives that might describe them. We also distinguished between gerunds and present participles, and we talked about how a gerund has to satisfy one of the functions of a noun, and we also talked about how present participles tend to be more deletable. We used the trick where gerunds cannot be deleted, but present participles can.